The Black and White Network presents House Calls, a show that deals with the major health issues of the day, discussed with prominent doctors and researchers on the subject. And now, welcome back to this edition of Black and White, and we're going to talk about something that we've talked about a lot, but we found a new expert that's going to help us. We're going to talk about COVID-19 and the variants and what you can do as individuals to give yourself the best chance to fight these viruses that come on. And it's Dr. Philip who's going to join us from Great Neck, New York. Welcome, Doctor.
Thank you so much for having me on your show.
My pleasure. What I want to do is start off and ask the question, what got you involved in this particular problem?
You know, since COVID became an issue for us in New York and as a whole United States, we've seen a lot of sick patients. And the same underlying theme has been recurrent. Every single patient. It's amazing if you can draw the line between all of them. And we've seen thousands of COVID patients, and scary. But besides being sick and getting pneumonia and needing to go to the hospital, and some of them were very subtle symptoms, but all of them had the same underlying problem. They were all dehydrated. They all were febrile. They were all burning through electrolytes, and it took them weeks, months, and sometimes you hear these terms long COVID, right? Long COVID, these are many months, sometimes to years, that people just feel like they've never recovered post-COVID.
I would say to you, having been a COVID patient, were you a COVID patient?
Luckily, no.
Well, good for you. I was a COVID patient, and I've had antibody tests, and I had the 2 vaccines, and virtually had no antibodies in my system after the 2 vaccines, and went to a third, not a booster, but a third shot. And it's like almost regular as clockwork, doctor. About 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I just run out of gas, and I have to sit down or lay down and take a short nap to recharge myself. And I've been 6 months since I had COVID, so my doctor tells me I'm what you're calling a long COVID case.
That's perfect.
What is it about the fact that there was what were we not doing because we were so dehydrated, or was the COVID draining the fluids out of our body?
So COVID is a virus. As a matter of fact, we can generalize it to just basically a general illness, whether it's infectious illness or any type of illness. It puts our body's immune system to great demand. It just puts our bodies into overdrive. It recruits all the machinery in our cells to build antibodies when you're sick. It could be any other illness, but the bottom line is our body goes into overdrive, and as such, it's using a lot of energy. So besides energy, it's utilizing a lot of electrolytes, and we pee electrolytes, we sweat electrolytes, when we drink regular water, and this is one of the biggest misconceptions when people get sick, they just drink a lot of water, and then they dilute their electrolytes. So now with tremendous loss and over dilution, people have very little of those electrolytes left, and they feel terrible. They feel exhausted. You gave just a perfect explanation: fatigue, headache, dizziness. They feel like they get muscle cramps. They get palpitations. Their heart is racing. They get mental haze. They feel like they don't know what's going on. They're just kind of floating through time. And again, the one thing that has consistently helped people get better quicker always has been electrolyte hydration.
So there was a lot of talking at the very beginning to things like zinc and magnesium and vitamin C, vitamin D, as natural products that we could take that would help build our immune system. Are you in favor of those?
Precisely. As a matter of fact, so Infused Chi is what we have developed because we saw the need to have something that had everything, instead of having to reach out to 5 supplements, having a Gatorade, having another drink with all the vitamins. We put it all in one powder. We put all the essential electrolytes, the vitamins, the magnesium, the zinc, the C, everything you literally just said that helps us recover faster. It tastes good, it's got no sugar, it's got no preservatives, all that stuff in one powder. You mix a couple of scoops into 50 ounces of water, you do that every day, and that is your protection. Imagine it as a bubble. That is your bubble that protects your body to recover faster.
The doctor, tell us why do these natural supplements, why do they work so well?
That's what our bodies need. Our cells need it. Our cells homeostasis. So remember, we have billions of cells in our bodies. Those cells, they talk to each other. The central nervous system, so your brain cells communicate with your heart cells. They communicate with your muscles in your legs so you can move. Your heart has to squeeze 60 beats per minute if you're healthy, or it goes much faster. You know, a lot of times people come to me saying, Doc, why is my heart rate up so much? Why is my heart rate resting at 100, 110? I tried to go up the stairs and I'm at 100, 140. What's going on with me? Why am I not feeling good? And why is my pulse reactive so much? And the answer is the same. Your blood volume is shrinking. Every time you're dehydrated, your blood volume is shrinking. That means there's not enough pressure going to your brain. You get confused. There's not enough pressure going to your heart. All of a sudden, you start to get skip beats because your heart is irritated. There's not enough pressure going, blood pressure going to your muscles. All of a sudden, you're getting a lot of these muscle cramps. Your body's talking to you. It's talking to you very loudly. And the question is, are you listening? Because if you're not, it's progressively getting worse and worse and worse. And guess what? Then you go to the hospital. You get in an ambulance because you can't walk anymore, or you pass out. The ambulance picks you up, takes you to the hospital, and guess what they give you? They give you salt water. They give you that infusion of electrolytes right in your IV. So I say to my patients all the time, listen, you either drink it or you wait long enough, the hospital will take care of it for you.
So how long have you been holding out this idea? How long have you been telling people about it?
So we've had it out for the last 2 years. For the last year, we've been selling it to our patients and our practices on Amazon. It's been the Infuse Sheet. It's been extremely popular. Just the other day, I had a 24-year-old college athlete came to see me with a heart rate 140, sitting like you and I right now, comfortable talking to each other. It's like, Doc, I would have to run for an hour to get to this heart rate. I'm now sitting talking to you, and I feel like I'm running. I went to the hospital. I went to urgent care twice. They did $1 million tests. They've done CAT scan. They exposed me to radiation as a young female. I hate doing that. They ruled out all the worst case scenario. And 2 weeks later, I'm sitting here in the office talking to you. Help. I said, no problem. Here's Infuse Sheet. I've listened. I've reviewed all the records. Clearly, all the worst case scenarios were ruled out. We knew this was dehydration. Here, drink it. She came back a week later with a pulse of 60. And she just was so thankful. And this happens over and over and over. It's just having enough understanding of pathophysiology, the human physiology, cellular physiology. You just have to understand it enough, and then you can put it in motion. Because honestly, even a lot of doctors don't fully understand it, and just experience is all it takes.
You open the door to the next question I wanted to ask you. A lot's probably too strong. A number of doctors throughout the country stepped up and recommended alternative treatments to their patients, and were seriously criticized for not falling in line with what the public health services said. Did you get any pushback on your product?
No, because I'll tell you why. You know, as an internist and a cardiologist, I'm a big believer in medications. That's what we do. Is, you know, you find one cardiologist that doesn't prescribe you medications. It doesn't happen, right? So we have great medication at our disposal. And as an internist, we have great standard therapy that we give our patients when they come sick. As a matter of fact, it works 95% of the time. We keep them out of the hospital. The other 5%, unfortunately, have to go in and get infusion therapy. So we are big believers in standard therapy. We do it all the time. But standard therapy alone is not enough. Standard therapy alone is going to make sure it will take you months and months and months to recover. And a lot of times, what people describe as long COVID, right? They will feel every single symptom of dehydration, between the cramps, between the fuzziness in the head, confusion sometimes, fatigue, a lot of the stuff, they will still feel that. So standard therapy, great idea. We never will replace that. However, if you do that alone, you miss out on a huge homeopathic, the natural part that really keeps us so vibrant. Think about rejuvenation. Our cells rejuvenate themselves. You have to go to sleep so you can rest. Why do you need that? Why does anybody have to go to sleep at night? Because your cells have to regenerate. They have to heal themselves, right? Otherwise, if you ever seen people who haven't slept for days, guess what? They look it, right? You know, you're like, hey, buddy, what happened to you? You look terrible, right? You're like, I'm concerned for you. Well, it's because they haven't had time to rejuvenate. Rehydration is part of that, right? When you don't have time to rehydrate, because you're always on the go and you think your only method of rehydration is coffee and tea, well, then you're in trouble, because then you're going to look like the guy who hasn't slept in 3 days.
So I want to ask you another question, not so much about COVID, but about what you're talking about. My wife and I established a foundation called Songs and Stories for Soldiers. It's a nonprofit, and it works with veterans service organizations in the VA in treating soldiers with traumatic brain injury, post-traumatic stress disorder, sleep deprivation, and suicide prevention. And I've worked with thousands and thousands of soldiers all across the country, veterans. We're in almost 140 facilities. But it just struck me, and I don't know why, when you started talking about how important hydration is. Have you ever treated anybody with any of these things that we've talked about with your hydration package?
Just to say, heroes, right? True heroes. Our first responders, our soldiers, our armed forces. There's, they have a deep, deep place in our hearts. And the fact that they get injured doing what they do to protect us, it's all of us should do more for them. To extrapolate on the point you made, the closest we come is to people who have concussions, right? People who were in accidents and they have whiplashes. Look, when we're dealing with, it's a spectrum. It's a complete, from a mild part of having a concussion, whiplash, to banging your head on the steering wheel and passing out, or getting hit during sports and you have a concussion, to traumatic brain injury, TBI. That is the most severe part of the spectrum, right? There is irreversible brain damage that's going on, and that's tough, heartbreaking to watch. But again, it's a spectrum. Not everybody falls on a traumatic brain injury and irreversible damage. There's so many that fall from the mild to moderate spectrum. And we've noticed, and I say this to my patients with concussions all the time, when you hydrate properly with electrolytes, remember, your brain is encased in fluid. Guess what that fluid is? That fluid is not water, right? That fluid is electrolyte fluid that was shaken, sure, but that electrolyte fluid, it needs to be lubricated. And you constantly need to lubricate that fluid around your brain. And when you properly hydrate, it goes right, it doesn't go just into your leg muscle cells, it goes into your heart muscle cells, it goes into your brain muscle, into your brain, and into the fluid around the brain, which is so important it's a shock absorber. You gotta lubricate with electrolytes, you gotta drink your electrolytes. That does help.
Well, we have to pause here for a moment to get some messages, but we'll be right back with Dr. Philip. Hello, this is Dan Perkins, executive producer of programming for Blacks and White Network. We are pleased to offer the opportunity to express yourself on important issues of the day. We are launching B&W Free Speech Question of the Week. Every Monday, we will ask you, our listeners, a single question, and you vote the answer to the question. You will have an opportunity to vote a simple yes or no, and if you want, you can share more about the answer on the website. We will encourage open discussion about the issues. On Saturday, we will announce the vote results. So stay tuned. Watch for the launch of B&W Free Speech. Welcome back. We talked to Dr. Philip, and we were talking about his, would it be right to call it homeopathic?
Absolutely. It's healthy. It's
medicine, talking about treating people who have COVID, and we were just starting a dialogue about soldiers and first responders who have had brain injury and are dealing with sleep deprivation and considering suicide. So I was asking the doctor, would your homeopathic medicines help people sleep? Because the doctors that we've worked with around the country at Songs and Stories tell us that sleep deprivation is incredibly important to deal with, because if the body can't rest, it can't heal. And that's kind of what you're saying. If the body can't heal when you sleep overnight, then you're not going to do any better. So can your products help people who are dealing with sleep depression?
It's such an important conversation, such an important topic. I mean, this is the deal, right? trying to understand this, and it's multifactorial. There's a lot of factors that play in hand here. It's not one thing. You give an antibiotic for somebody's sore throat, they get better. 2 days later, they are thankful and done, closed. When you come down, when you're dealing with subtle diagnoses, big diagnoses, a lot of times it's 5 things, 10 things play a role here. Removing one thing is never enough. That's why a lot of times these diagnoses and these treatments are so tough to deal with. They're so tough to diagnose and treat, because you focus on one thing at a time, and all of a sudden you say, well, nothing works. But in reality, it doesn't work, because you've only been trying to take one thing at a time. It's impossible to play a game when you're only trying to fix one thing. When there's 9 things on the board, it's impossible. So the point is, look, there's chemical imbalance, right? And it's chicken and the egg. Is it you're depressed and anxious and now you can't sleep? Or is it the anxiety? Or is it the fact that you can't sleep because of dehydration or other issues? You can't sleep, and now that you can heal, and now you cannot properly rejuvenate. Now you get anxious because you couldn't sleep for days. So the bottom line is, there is connection that goes both ways. And the idea is, it's a chemical imbalance, but it's also electrical and electrolyte imbalance. It's a vitamin imbalance. So I feel like if we try to fix at least 2, 3 out of 10 at a time, and then go after the traditional therapy, and I'm a strong believer in traditional therapy. It's so impossible to separate the two and say, and I frown upon people who, physicians out there or providers out there, who say, no, we don't believe in traditional therapy. We don't believe in medications. We've seen a lot of that, and it's scary, because there are people who don't get proper therapy because they feel like, no, I shouldn't do that. No, we believe in traditional therapy, 100%. But that will maybe take 3, maybe 4 things off the board. There's another 5, 6 things that are there. You've got to be able to multitask and deal with all of them simultaneously. That's the best way we have to fix these complicated, subtle issues that our soldiers that have been really traumatized by war, right? Think about that. Traumatized by war, by single or sometimes multiple events that it just took toll day after day, month after month. You can't fix that with one pill. You can't fix that with one therapy, with one CAT scan, with one physical therapy. It is comprehensive. And part of the comprehensive is keeping our cells healthy, keeping our bodies healthy, lubricating our cells in our bodies so that we feel good. So we get that extra bubble to help us with the stressors of life, because the stressors are always there, right? You drive in your car, somebody cuts you off, that's a stressor. Now, to somebody who's seasoned and has seen war, seen death, they're like, all right, whatever. Go ahead, you're impatient, no big deal. And to somebody else, that stressor is a big deal. All of a sudden, it shakes them to the core, and they really have a bad time. But the bottom line is, we just have to deal with all the subtleties, with all the things.
Doctor, I think the situation that I was in that made the strongest impression about dealing with veterans is that we had the opportunity to go at Walter Reed in Washington, D.C. and work with the veterans, disabled veterans who were there. And the Sergeant Major who was responsible for a certain part of it was taking us on a tour of the hospital to meet veterans. We went outside a little park, and there was a veteran, a triple amputee, both legs and one arm, sitting in a wheelchair, and just a tremendous spirit of really trying to figure out a way he could get back to Afghanistan with his buddies, but that was never going to happen. And we sat down and talked with him, and talked to him about sleep deprivation in our Songs and Stories MP3 player. And he looked at me, and he said, Mr. Perkins, it's one thing the chain of command does not understand, is how serious a problem sleep deprivation is for all soldiers, not just us that are here at Walter Reed. And that struck me, because he was willing to step up, and our philosophy at Songs and Stories is we use music to allow the body to get to REM level sleep where the healing can take place. And it's just I just picked up 9 additional facilities this week that are working with disabled veterans. And so I'm so excited about what you have to do, that if you can help veterans, we want to facilitate that if we can. But are the package that you sell to your patients, you say is also available on Amazon?
That's correct.
And what is it called on Amazon?
Infuse Chi, CHI. Infuse, like you would infuse something, and then Chi, CHI.
And what's in it?
So essential electrolytes, and not just a bunch of salt that the other products on the market that are very common and sold in supermarkets. But you see, the amount of salt or electrolytes that's in that powder is so hand tailored by physicians, which doesn't exist now, right? So a nephrologist, my partner, Dr. Nayar, who is literally his whole specialty, years, decades of experience, is nothing but electrolytes. Imagine that, somebody who hand tailors the amount of salt, sodium, chloride, potassium, I mean, the amount of electrolytes your cells need come from somebody who's been in the lab, who understands what your cells need. So imagine that. Vitamins, the B's, a whole bunch of vitamin B's and the C and the zinc and the magnesium, everything that our on a cellular level we need to heal, to rejuvenate, for our skin to look nicer, so we don't age fast, for our energy to be there. And I said this to our patients, the oomph, right? Our patients come to us saying, Doc, I lost my oomph. I think my testosterone level is low. I was like, listen, your testosterone level is low just because you're older, but has nothing to do with your energy, right? I mean, I see a lot of people that take that, but I say, what about natural? What about you take something that your cells need, that you're hungry for it, they're thirsty, right? You're thirsty. What happens when you're thirsty? You go to the kitchen, you parched, you just grab that drink and you're like, geez, man, I'm so thirsty. I'm going to drink it right now. Now, a lot of patients lose that mechanism of that thirst, right? Especially as you age, forget about it. You have no thirst mechanism anymore. And that's why so many elderly are just falling apart, because they just don't have the thirst mechanism that protects them. So you hydrate with that beautiful infusion of electrolytes and vitamins that's been so hand tailored, and your body just is happy, it's smiling. It just gives you that oomph that you need to just do your life.
So how long have you had the product on the market?
So we've been developing it for 2 years, and it's been out for a year now. We have 20,000 patients, and a lot of them are using it out of our practices. And you know, they love it. They love the fact they don't need another pill. They love the fact they don't have to go to the hospital. They love the fact that they just feel good.
So do you have any other products under consideration?
No, our Infused Chi is this is our life. This is our passion. This is, you know, why do patients have to go to the hospital to feel good? You know, we want to, by the way, we want to limit the healthcare costs, right? Every time somebody goes to the hospital, it's an extra expense. We don't need that. We want them just to be healthy. So the more they know about this, the safer we are as a society, costs us less as a society. We can spend money on soldiers. We can spend money on projects that are worthy, rather than trillion-dollar healthcare costs.
So we're talking about a product that is not FDA approved?
It does not need to be FDA approved, because it's a supplement. It's electrolyte. It'd be similar to the kind of stuff you sell on in a supermarket, like a supplement or electrolyte.
And is it a liquid or a powder?
It's a powder.
Does it come in a capsule? You have to scoop it out.
It's either a packet, or it comes as a jar. So you just take with a scoop and put it in a container of water.
Have there been any side effects with it?
No, and the follow-up is tastes amazing.
It tastes amazing. So it's good for you and it tastes good.
You know, this is what people say. They say, Doc, you've been recommending for me to drink Gatorade before we had this product. You know, the best you had on the market was Gatorade, Pedialyte, Propel. I said, Doc, you tell me to drink that stuff. It's got color, so I already know it's terrible for me. I mean, look at all the Skittles stuff that came out recently about all the color preservatives, right? Then B, it tastes synthetic, tastes terrible. I know I have to do it, so I'm suffering, I'm doing it. But now finally, A, they have something that is got no calories, it's non-GMO, it's got no preservatives, it's got no calories. It basically it's a natural stevia. So we have the acai flavor, we have the watermelon flavors, the kind of stuff you get out of Starbucks without sugar. And like I said, it's like literally getting an infusion of IV electrolytes in the hospital.
In the time we have left, I want to ask you a couple more questions. I want to be more specific about myself. I've been on vitamin and mineral therapy for a long time. I take all kinds of pills every day, twice a day. And are you saying if I went to your product, I could check those and just deal with one?
Imagine that, right? So typically you would take a pill for magnesium, you would take a pill for zinc, you would take 3 different vitamin B complexes. If you're lucky, it's in one. You would take another pill for vitamin C.
Right.
Then you would take a bunch of electrolytes that you can't even get in pills. You would have to drink other synthetic products. It's amazing, right? All of a sudden, and I see that you're not exception. I see patients, cardiology patients, they come in with literally 15 things on the list, and scares me because they have some of the supplements that are not regulated at all. I've seen people needing pacemakers. Because the stuff they were taking just was so bad for them and then toxic for them, and all the interactions, right? So the bottom line is you can simplify your pill box, because you don't need to take 1,000 supplements, because majority of that stuff is already in a powder form. You can mix it, enjoy it, because now you're not suffering because it's so tasteless. You suffer, right? People don't want to drink because it's so bland. Now you can finally enjoy it. And by the way, one thing I didn't mention, all those young people who drink alcohol, which by the way irritates the heart, right? They mix that post alcohol, they mix it in a water, and all of a sudden they protect themselves from all those palpitations, heart racing, and all those dehydration effects, because alcohol is a big dehydrator and it's a huge toxic compound on the heart, right? That's why a lot of time people drink and all of a sudden they end up in the hospital emergency room because they have all these palpitations, they feel terrible. So post alcohol intake, they take a whole lot of 40-50 ounces of electrolyte water with infused sheet. They feel great.
Okay, so it's been a pleasure and informative. Tell us again the name of the product.
Infused Chi, CHI.
And so it's INFUSED.
No D, just infuse.
And it's THI.
CHI.
THI.
C like cat. H.
Oh, CHI. Okay. And it's available at Amazon.
And available on Amazon.
Any stores or just at Amazon?
We're looking to get into the store, so looking for distributors.
Okay. Thank you so much for the amazing information, and I'm gonna try it, and I'll let my audience know, and we'll have you on again and let you know how I did.
I love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
And we'll be right back.